Hello, Jessica. Welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, friend. Excited to be back.
Yes, you are officially the first guest to come back for an encore.
What? That's
I
exciting.
know, I know. I'm so excited to have you. You're one of my favorite people anyway, but I love to have you on the interview because you're just so smart about so many business things. And your interview is like one of the top three most popular. People are always downloading it and listening to it. And I hear so much great feedback about your first one. So I'm excited to see what comes from this
No
one.
pressure now on the
No,
second one.
no. I will be sending you statistics daily.
Great.
Listen, number two is not performing like number one, Jessica.
Shoot. Better marketing.
So if people forgot about you, I don't know how that could be possible. Or if this is just their first time tuning in, they haven't heard your first interview, tell everybody a little bit about you and about what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Jessica Millhiser. I am the owner of J Mills Consulting, and I am a business operations consultant. And really, what that means is I work with service-based female entrepreneurs to help them build a business internally that can sustain the growth that they look for. So, business operations, processes, procedures, systems, workflow, organization, business identity, mission, vision, values, growing your team. Basically, all of those internal logistics that really need to be in place and solid for you to grow to whatever capacity it is that you're looking to grow.
I love that. I love having people who do things like what you do on the podcast because this is the kind of stuff I think that so many of us get into business because we want to just do our thing. And
Yeah.
we don't know anything about systems or procedures or processes or automation or
Yeah.
anything like that. Like a lot of times we don't even stop to think about what our mission, vision, and values are. We're just
Yeah.
like, this is the service I want to provide. This is who I want to work with. It's going to be great. Here we go.
Yep. Yep. I would 100% agree with that. And that's why people like me exist, because this component of business is not as fun, right? It's not flashy or sexy. I mean, I could geek out over it for sure. But it's harder. And if your brain doesn't necessarily think that way or process things that way, like you might not think about, well, if I make this change, let's play that out. And like, what does that actually look like down the road?
Yeah.
So yeah, all of the internal structure, fun logistical things.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we don't realize how much better or easier it can be.
Mhm.
Like, especially in the beginning of business, I'm just thinking about a conversation I had with a web designer and he was like, "Well, how are you currently doing things if you don't have a website?" This was several years ago. And I'm like, "Well, I made a landing page on Canva, and
Mhm.
when people go to the landing page, then they put their information in and I get an email with the thing, and then I do the thing, and then I add them, I go in and manually give them this tag, and then they get the thing." And he's like, "How's that working for you?" And I'm like, "Well, for the last 2 years, it was working fine." Right? Like
Yeah.
in the beginning, I think it's a
Yeah.
lot easier to just kind of like piece things together and like figure it out as we go. And we're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right, but it's something at least. And then we get to a point where we're like, okay, maybe we should figure out like how to do this more efficiently.
And certainly, like in the beginning, a lot of it is trial and error anyway. Like you've got to figure out what your process is, what your system is. And that takes some time, that takes some tweaking, certainly. But I always recommend start documenting earlier, start figuring out at least a rough outline. Here's how I do this thing, because that will hugely impact your business down the road if you want to bring on a team member or an assistant or outsource in whatever capacity that is. So if you can start early because that gives you a foundation to build upon. And then as you make tweaks, you can make the edits as needed.
Absolutely. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So today we're talking about delegation, which is a great topic for all women in general, whether they're business owners or not. I think
Indeed.
many of us struggle with this in various areas of our lives. So let's start by just talking about why people find it so hard to delegate, especially in business.
So before I even like get to that part, I think it's important to also recognize like there's outsourcing and then there's delegating. And there are kind of two different things, right? Outsourcing is more like I'm hiring a professional, I'm hiring a contractor, I'm hiring somebody with a specific area of expertise to do this thing for me. because I either don't want to do it, don't know how to do it, don't have the time to do it. A bookkeeper is a great example of that, right? Delegating is really more like, here's the thing that I need help with. Here's what I would like to see. Here's how I want it done. I need to figure out how to hand this off to somebody on my team. So just thinking about that from like a business perspective, like understanding what you want to offload, and if that's outsourcing or delegating, or even potentially, I need to just figure this out because this is something I need to know how to do. Then answering your question, um, people find it hard because it's hard to let go, especially if you're a solopreneur. I think especially if you're a female, it's difficult to relinquish that control sometimes. And part of that comes down to, well, I've always done it, I'll just continue to do it. Or sometimes it's, well, they're not going to do it as good as I'm going to do it. They're not going to do it the way I want it done. Some of it's that. Some of it is perfectionism. Like if you are somebody who is a perfectionist, hi, my name is Jessica, I'm a recovering perfectionist. Um, People are going to have a difficult time meeting those standards. And then that's sort of already setting them up for failure. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of it, honestly, is mindset and how you can begin to feel comfortable letting go of that control. Understanding that trying to do everything for everyone all the time is not good either. Like that's not good for anybody, especially you, because burnout will be an issue. Mood swings and just emotional whatever could become an issue. It's just, it's too much. So if you're shouldering too much, you need to figure out, how can I begin to let go of some of this?
Mhm. So that's a really good point. How do we know when we are at a place where we're ready to start delegating or where we should get ready to start delegating?
Yeah, that's usually, in my mind, a fairly easy thing to recognize. Like if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling burnt out, if you're feeling irritable, if things are getting missed, if you're feeling unorganized or scattered or frazzled. Like certainly some of that could be time management issues. But also that's usually a good flag, like a red flag that says, hey, you're doing too much, you're taking on too much, and your body is starting to feel that, and you're dropping the ball and you're missing things. And it's just, you're not performing your highest quality of work.
Mhm. What do you think is the best place to start with delegating? Like, if we are listening to this and it's like, okay, yes, I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I'm missing things. I know this could be better, but I'm half the time just like, okay, done is better than perfect. Here we go.
Mhm.
Okay, fine. I believe you. I should start delegating.
Yeah.
But where do I even begin with that?
So I think part of it is actually going to be because it could be a multifaceted thing, right? Is it stuff that's going on at home? Is it family? Is it like purely business? So I think figuring out where the main source of the stress is, number one, and you can kind of analyze that. Like, what do I do in my day to that like feels like too much? And start making a list. What are the things that I really don't want to be responsible for? Like, I really need those things off of my plate, either because I don't like doing them, I don't know how to do them, I don't have the time to do them, I just really don't care and just need somebody else to do it. So I think starting with a list of all of those things, like literally everything, personal and professional, and then see what that looks like. And then from there, you can decide, okay, I can give this away. I can figure out how to give this away. I can figure out how to either just cut this, because maybe it's things that don't need to be done and don't even need to be delegated, period. And it's just you're doing them and you can just stop doing them. So I think making a list is a great way to start because you want to get it out of your head and onto paper. And a lot of entrepreneurs that I come across, sometimes myself included, we're very much in our head, right? We're thinking, we're pondering, we're ruminating, you've got like 47 different tabs open. And getting that out onto paper so that you can actually see it, really, that's the first step. that's going to help you start to be able to make change, to make moves, to figure out what your next step is.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful too. Your first episode was about time management, so that's ironic. These two are very well related.
Yes.
Because I think that's helpful too when it comes to time management. Like I will have days where I'm like, I was busy all day, but what did I actually get done? And sometimes just sitting
Mhm.
down and looking at like making a list of what I did that day and how I spent my time. Sometimes I
Mhm.
have to reference my little screen time tracker and I'm
Yep.
like, "Oh, that's why I think I was
Here's where it
busy all
went.
day." But that's really helpful, like you were saying, to be able to look and see, like, where am I spending my time and where am I spending my energy? And are some of these things that could just go away that are just making me feel like I'm doing something, but I don't actually need to be doing them? Are
Mhm.
they things that we could delegate? And to your point, it could be things in your personal life, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be things in your business, but maybe delegating laundry to someone else
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
delegating the yard work to someone else, whether that's someone in your family or someone that you are paying to come and do it.
Yeah,
That can free up time and energy for you to be able to show up in other places more
exactly.
fully.
And I think about that, even with groceries. Like I typically am somebody that loves doing groceries, but on weeks where I'm just like slammed, I will have my groceries delivered. And like, yes, it costs a little bit more, but is it really like what's outweighing? Like, do I need to go spend 90 minutes and get groceries, or can I spend 90 minutes on like some client work that is more beneficial? So I think just really understanding whatever those things are for you and then figuring out how to make moves.
For sure. So okay, so now I'm at a place where I recognize, all right, I need to start delegating some things.
Mhm.
And I have made this list and I have some ideas of what I want to delegate in my business in particular.
Mhm.
What do I need to do in order to prepare to delegate? Because I think this is a piece that a lot of people are missing. We
Yeah.
skip that part. We're just like, here's some stuff I need done. We find a person,
Mhm.
and because so and so said they were great. And then
Yeah.
we're like, hey, so and so, here's the stuff I need done.
Yeah.
And we've not set either of us up for success. So what do we need to do beforehand to make sure that we're prepared to delegate in a way that is going to be successful for us and for the person we're delegating to?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about delegation is that, okay, I just need to say, I need you to do this thing. Cool, go do this thing. That's not really actually how it works. Delegation really in the beginning is fairly hands-on. You do really need to have processes or procedures or SOPs or Loom videos at the minimum of here are the tasks that I'm trying to hand off to you. Here's how to do them the way that I would like them done or how to do them well. Here's the information. Here's the resources. Let's go through it together. Like, really, they should be shadowing you at least like once with the resources at hand as you're doing a task that you want to hand off. So, in my perfect world, you've got the resources, they shadow you while you're doing said task or project, and then you shadow them while they're doing said task or project. And then cool, go on your way, do your thing. I'm here as a resource for you and support for you if you need me. So that's like in an ideal. I know that that's not always a feasible thing. So I think at minimum, resources, documentation, and or Loom videos are a really great place to start with that. And then instructing them through it would be important, at least an outline, at least kind of an overarching, here's how it works, but also really understanding here are the timelines, here are the expectations, here are the anticipated deliverables, here's, when I want you to communicate with me. So to be fair, like there is kind of a decent upfront, hands-on component of it. But what that does is it sets them up for success so that eventually they can really just take it and run with it and you no longer really have to think about it at all or worry about it as much, right?
Mhm.
So that's kind of, does that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had an idea of what I would say the answer to the question was just from my own experiences and
Yeah.
watching friends that I've had who have hired virtual assistants in particular. I think
Mm-hmm.
we have a tendency to think if we hire somebody for social media management, or I'm going to hire this person because she's an expert on LinkedIn, or I'm going to hire this person to do all the emails that go out to my list or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is an expert.
Mm-hmm.
So we just say, okay, you're an expert, go do it. What we
Mm-hmm.
don't think about is there are 100 different ways to
Yeah.
do Instagram, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not automatically going to know how you want it done and what you want done and how
Mm-hmm.
often you want it done and what you want
Right.
it to look like. And if you don't care, if you're like, I've never had an Instagram before, I don't know what's going on, I don't care, just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
Most of us don't have that kind of personality. I wish
Right.
I wish I was just
Probably
like,
not, but
just
maybe.
do it. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely a learning curve in them understanding what it is that you want and how you want it done. And a lot more, in my experience, a lot more communication involved than I anticipated there was going to be. I thought it was just going to be, here's the tasks. This is what I want you to do. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye.
But then also thinking about, okay, do they need login details? Do they need platform access? And like what platforms do they need access to? Do you guys need to be collaborating in documents or spreadsheets at all? How are you meeting on a regular basis? And what is that frequency? Right? Like, do they need approval by you to do certain things before they do them? Or do they have the autonomy or the authority to just act on your behalf, right? So these are all the things that really need to be communicated up front as well, so that expectations are clear and everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a good example I'm thinking of with my virtual assistant, and she's amazing. You know, Tiffany, she's the best ever.
Mm-hmm.
But when she first started working for me, I was like, okay, one of the things I want you to do is find podcasts for me to be on and like apply, like do all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought those were very good directions.
You sure?
And
I
she
have
was
some
like,
follow-up questions.
she's like, great, I'm on it. And so over the course of us kind of, figuring out like what are we doing and how are we doing it and what is it that you want me to do? It was like so much stuff that I didn't even think about. Like, where do you want me to find these podcasts? Do you have any requirements? Like, are you okay with me booking you on a podcast that has only had 3 episodes out? Or do you only want to be on podcasts that have been around for several years?
Mm-hmm.
Are you like, I need your bio. I need to know the topics that you want to talk about. I need your headshot. Like, I need all the things in order to be able to submit that. And
Mm-hmm.
then what do you want them to do if they want you on the podcast? Do you want them to
Right.
email me back? Do you want them to email you? Do you want to have nothing to do with it until the podcast is booked and then it shows up on your calendar? Like, how
Right.
much involvement do you want in this? And so I think that's a really important point for entrepreneurs in particular when we are looking at delegating is like
Yeah.
we do stuff like that and we get frustrated because they don't just do it the way that we like telepathically thought that they should.
Right. Right. And it comes back to, again, right, getting what's out of your head onto paper in some capacity. Because it's like,
Yes.
okay, well, this is automatic for me because I just do it all the time. But what does that transfer of knowledge actually look like? What is that path? And how can you push that knowledge from you to them in a seamless way?
Yeah. It's like the analogy I'm thinking of when we're having this conversation is like somewhere that you drive to all the time that you know exactly how to get there, but
Hmm.
you don't know the address, you don't know what street it's on. You couldn't tell
Yep.
somebody else how to get there, but you could get in the car and drive there right now. So it's
Yep.
basically like, me telling her like, "Oh, just drive to my mom's house." And
Great.
she's
Got
like,
it.
"Okay, where is it?"
I need a little bit more of a heads up. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
right.
then also, just circling back on this, and you're really the address is a good illustration of that. But really, as the entrepreneur, it's your job to set them up for success. It's your job to make sure that they have the information and the resources available so that they can do a good job, so that they are going to be successful, so that you can continue to hand off more stuff. Because
Right.
that's the ultimate goal. I need to free up more time. This is what will lead to that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's a little life hack for you. This also applies to delegating within the family.
Indeed, it does.
Me and my sister, one of our favorite jokes is there's this meme that goes around that's like, me, can someone else or can someone else vacuum the floor or something like that? And then it's like me 2 seconds later. No, not like that.
Oh gosh, my husband says that to me. I'll ask him to like do something and then he'll do it, but like not the way that I would like it done. And so it takes every single molecule of my being to be like, he did it. It's done. I didn't have to do it. Let it go, Jessica. Let it go.
Uh-huh. And then out of your mouth goes, thank you so much. But on the inside, you're like, you did it wrong.
Wait a minute, you missed the spot. Love you,
Yeah,
honey.
there's your life advice from Jessica and I. So obviously preparation is one of the things that goes into making delegation successful.
Mm-hmm.
Communication also.
100%.
What else goes into making delegation successful? How do we set up for success for both of us?
So, yes, in terms of the communication, figuring out what kind of communication is required. Like, where are you communicating? Are you email? Are you Voxer? Are you text? Are you Signal? Are you Slack? Like, whatever. Where does communication happen? And also, what is the turnaround time? What's the expectation? Especially if you're working with potentially a virtual assistant and you ping them, say, on Monday at 3 p.m., if they don't get back to you maybe until Tuesday at noon, is that cool? So think
Hmm.
about what the turnaround response time looks like. And then also, if there's a quote unquote emergency, if something comes up that needs to be addressed immediately, what is that expectation? So essentially making sure if this is handled and if something comes up, let's say 3, 5 p.m. on Thursday, is the expectation that you're both or this person is on it right away, even though it's maybe technically after hours. So just organizing all of that. And then feedback, like feedback along the way. Continuous feedback is another big component of this, right? Like people want to know that they're doing a good job. People want to know that they're doing it well, that they're doing it right, that they're meeting the expectations. Like at the heart of it, people want to do a good job. So I think just having regular conversations, what went well, what could be tweaked, what needs to shift, how are we doing? And that could be, that could be weekly if you wanted weekly. That could be at least once a month, I would recommend, depending on the relationship, depending on the project, things like that. But regular feedback would be important on both sides because they could also come to you and be like, hey, I really need this from you. Hey, I need this information, or I'm looking for an approval from you. Here are my deadlines to do the work that needs to be done, right? So it's a reciprocity,
Reciprocal.
reciprocal. There we go. Whatever. Y'all know what I mean. So it's like a mutual thing, right? They're going to have certain needs and expectations to get the job done as well. So just continuous and regular feedback.
Yeah. Great advice. Do you have any recommendations for someone who is struggling with the mindset piece of delegation? Someone who just feels like I'm not ready to trust someone else to this because it's a lot, right? It's a
Mhm.
lot to have built this business yourself. It's a lot when you are ultimately the one who faces the consequences if things aren't done well, if things aren't successful, if you don't make money. This is your baby. It's like leaving your baby with the babysitter for the first time. That's very, very scary.
Yeah.
So, do you have any recommendations for like mindset shifts that might help?
So I think when it comes to mindset, it might take you a little while to really get comfortable with it. And that's okay because at a certain point, you will reach a threshold where you're like, okay, I literally cannot keep doing this on my own anymore. And you're kind of just like, F it, I need to start delegating because you've reached a point, you're maxed, right? So ideally, you want to get you before you're there. So I think sit with it. Like, what is the fear? What is the insecurity? And how is not getting help? How is not getting support hindering you in your business? If you continue to do it all on your own, what is that going to mean for the future of your business, right? It will slow you down. The work won't be as high quality, probably, right? You won't be able to grow maybe to what you're looking for. So think about the cons within your business of not delegating, of not trying to start letting go. And I think that will be the biggest contributing factor.
That's good. Yeah, there's also a thing that I've seen go around Facebook that's like, I don't know who needs to hear this, but there is no award at the end for most exhausted. There's no award for most overworked.
Nope.
There's no award for like who stayed up the latest working
No.
on the thing.
Yep. Yeah.
And I
And
love that.
it's a hard thing to like wrap your head around, right? And part of that's also going to come down to, what do you want the vision of your business to look like? Are you somebody that wants to grow, that wants to scale, that wants to delegate, outsource, bring on a team of some kind? Okay, then that is the vision of your business, and you need to start taking action steps to get there. If you're somebody that's like, you know what, I feel really good, I'm a solopreneur, I want to keep it this way, I need to figure out maybe other ways to maybe delegate in my personal life, or maybe understand that this is where I want to live and maybe create a wait list or raise my prices, or like whatever that looks like for you. So I think the vision of your business will also dictate whether or not you really want to start making that delegation move.
hmm Absolutely. That's great advice. Now I'm about to go make a list of a bunch of other stuff I'm going to delegate.
Lists. Love lists.
Tiffany's going to call you in about 10 minutes and be like, thanks a
Sorry,
lot.
Tiffany, my bad, my bad, my bad.
No, she loves it. She loves it. Awesome. Is there anything about delegation? I mean, this is a big topic. Obviously, we could keep going for a while, but is there anything that you want to touch on that we haven't touched on? Anything that you think is important for people to consider when they are thinking about delegation strategies for their business?
Yeah, I guess the thing that I would say is start slow. Like, start slow, start small, start with one or two things that you feel comfortable letting go of, right? And then just take a look at your resources available and make sure that whoever you're actually delegating to has the capacity, has the skill set to actually perform the function. Because sometimes people just throw bodies at a problem, bodies at an issue. And like, while that can work, while that can be like a band-aid, long term, it's not as good as having somebody with the right skill set take over the certain functions. So start slow, get comfortable, take your time with it, and as you get more comfortable, you can start handing more stuff off. And it just takes time. Be nice to yourself. It's something that takes time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm always a proponent of being authentic. And like I told Tiffany in the very beginning, I was like, listen, I've had a VA before, wasn't great. I know I'm the part of the problem. We'll figure this out together. Like, feel free to say to me, like, hi, this isn't working. You need to tell me sooner than 5 minutes before, or,
Yeah,
whatever the thing is. Like, you can be honest with the person, and you should be honest with the person that you're working with and just say, like,
absolutely.
we're going to have to figure this out as we go. So know that I am open to your feedback. I am hopeful that you are open to my feedback, and we will find a way that works for both of us.
Yep. Full transparency and good communication are key.
Love it. Thank you
Totally.
so much, Jessica. This is awesome. If people want to connect with you, if they want to learn more about what you do and how you can help them in their business, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yes, jmillsconsulting.com is my website. I'm also active on Instagram. It's jmills_consulting. And LinkedIn, I am Jessica Millhiser, and would love to chat, would love to connect. And if you listen to this podcast, would love to know what your thoughts are on delegation and how you're coming along with it, because I know it can be a tricky space.
Awesome. I will put all those links in the show notes. People are welcome to reach out to you about this or about anything else that they think you might be able to help them with. Thank you again for coming back. It's always great chatting with
Oh
you.
my gosh, loved it. Always love it. Anytime.